Now, an in-depth look at the news and information shaping our community. This is Moose Talks with your host, dubcraig, on Moose FM.
Good morning. Welcome to the program. A little later on, we're going to be joined by Margaret May. She's the Vice President of the Fort St. John Arts Council, and we're going to be talking a bit about the impact that Sue Popesku has had on this community. She passed away just about 2 years ago, and she's receiving posthumously the Freedom of the City of Fort St. John at the Remembering Sue ceremony that's happening tomorrow at the North Peace Cultural Center. So we'll be talking a bit about that in just a few minutes. But first, it's been a long session of Parliament that's not quite wrapped up, but pretty close. And so summer break will be coming up for our MPs shortly. So to talk about that and, of course, the Conservative leadership race that's underway, we're joined now by our MP for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies, Bob Zimmer. Bob, so nice to have you in person in the studio for the first time in years.
Good to be home once again. So good to be here. And it doesn't seem like it's been that long, but I guess it has been, eh?
Right. I was thinking that I think you were my first guest when I did this show because we were running for re-election in 2019. And since then, every time you've been via video because of COVID or travel or whatever. Yeah. So it's good to see you.
Good to be back. Thank you.
We're going to get this started with gun control, of course, because that's the hot topic right now. The Liberals have put out a new bill that the NDP say they're going to support, of course, because of their confidence and supply agreement that would freeze the import, buying and selling and transferring of handguns. That's sort of a big part of it. Can you tell us why you're against it, you and the party?
Yeah, well, it's to be blunt, it actually makes Canadians less safe. When they go after law-abiding firearms owners with resources, money, essentially taxpayer dollars. And we've seen the previous firearms, the long gun registry cost $2 billion. We don't know what this new plan is going to cost, probably upwards of $3 to $5 billion. And the reason why we're less safe because of this, because when the focus is on the wrong people, on the good guys, then the bad guys keep getting to walk free. And so when you see during this particular Liberal government's reign, we've seen an increase in homicides in inner cities. And the problem is illegal firearms, not law-abiding firearms owners or legal handguns, frankly. So again, it's a bit of a bait and switch. It kind of tells urbanites that the Liberals are doing something about guns, but it's really not. And we're calling on them to actually do some real things to really make people more safe in our urban cities.
I have to ask this because I'm 99% sure you own guns. Is that correct?
Yes, I do.
Do you own handguns?
I do.
Okay.
Yep.
So, as you already said, this is sort of, you think of this, the handgun problem with illegal firearms as an urban Canada problem. Toronto, Montreal, Edmonton, kind of the big cities, right?
Right.
People like you who have handguns kind of in rural settings, just out of curiosity, what are you using them for? Because you don't think of hunting with a handgun immediately, right?
And we're not allowed to. Legally, we're only allowed to go to the range and have some fun, and we call it sport shooting.
Yeah.
I was out there last week. It was National Range Day, and I was out with Burke Forrester of the North Peace Rod and Gun Club. And there's either you can compete as a sport in IPSC, or you can just go out there. My kids have gone out there and shot handguns. It's something that we enjoy doing. Part of it's a throwback to our heritage and our history.
Sure.
So we just enjoy having them. And we do it lawfully, legally, and all the rest of it. I think the irony, and we talked about less safe, while this government is implementing C-21 and eliminating handguns, they're also bringing in a Bill C-5, which actually lessens consequences for firearms crimes, ironically, for things like possessing a prohibited or restricted firearms with ammunition. So there used to be mandatory minimums for these crimes.
Yeah.
For offenders convicted of possessing a weapon obtained by commission of an offense, for offenders convicted of weapons trafficking, for offenders convicted of possession for the purpose of weapons trafficking. And I like to bring this one up because, this is a government that's saying they're making us more safe. They're actually lessening sentences for this. For offenders convicted of robbery where an offense is committed with a firearm, or for offenders convicted of extortion. So you have on one hand, they say we're going to make you safe in Canada, and yet they're letting people off easier on this with this other legislation. So to me, it's baffling. Again, it's going after the wrong people, making us less safe.
Now, of course, this is also in the news because of the unspeakable tragedy that happened in the United States in Texas recently. This comes up here every once in a while, too, in Canada. Yeah. I'm just wondering, because, of course, we see the gun debate often as sort of one side saying, why do we have these controls in place? And then the other side saying, we need more controls in place. Right. I'm curious what a conservative government, what you would advocate for instead of the measures that the Liberals are proposing. What is it that we should be doing that you think would actually protect Canadians, as you say?
Well, we're looking at, we've talked about it before, but a simplified classifications regime, but also to have another look at the Firearms Act, because it's very convoluted. So you'll see, just because of a plastic part attached to a particular firearm, one's restricted and one is non-restricted. And things even like terms like non-restricted and restricted, they're very confusing to the non-firearms community. And non-restricted and unrestricted sounds identical, but they're completely different, right? Non-restricted is a very, specific type of firearm that you have to have a license for. You have to go through the proper channels. You get vetted to do that. Unrestricted is, open sales across a counter. Well, we're not advocating for that at all. We're saying, what we're saying is that Firearms Act needs to have a look at, and it needs to be refined and made better. And so really deal with what's the real problem. Let's tackle the real problem. Make sure our streets are more safe as a result of what we do.
So that would be investment in anti-gun kind of gang kind of crime and that sort of thing. It's
more resources on the border for CBSA. So, a lot of the containers that come in, I don't know if a lot of Canadians know that most of those containers are not even looked through. I think it's about 1% is what I've heard is the amount that actually get looked in. So can you imagine if we're able to have the resources to even up that by, tenfold, where it's 10%, and how many more firearms that we'll capture by doing that? And then also inner cities and policing, and what are we giving those inner city police officers who, I might add, happen to say, and we've heard recent testimony at our public safety committee, that this law that they are trying to implement won't make a stitch of difference to those crimes in our inner cities.
Do you think increasing penalties would help do the job, making it so that it's so unprofitable to be a black market importer, salesperson of guns that they just wouldn't bother doing it?
Absolutely, and that's what we're saying. That's why we had mandatory minimums in the first place, is when you see somebody, an example, a gangbanger in Toronto, uses a firearm and then they're out on the street within days. There's something wrong there, and that's what we have to tackle. The people that are committing crimes with illegal firearms and killing people need to stay behind bars, and we need to, look at the justice aspect. And again, a lot of these folks are repeat offenders too, so why are we letting them on the streets again? We need to tackle that as part of the problem.
Okay. I want to move on now to looking at some positives, if we can, if possible. Often we have you on, you're in opposition. Your job is to slap around the government a bit on what they're doing. But I'm wondering if you see some positive out of the session that was. Some things that you and the Conservatives and the government have accomplished for the betterment of the country. Is there something you're feeling positive about?
Absolutely. I think, coming out of the COVID restrictions and all that, I think we've come up with a real positive message. It's time to get back to normal again. And we're pushing the government to do some good things. And for, in large part, our country has opened up, and we're pushing more about getting the mandates lifted from airports and those kind of things that are just slowing everything down needlessly. We're really kind of past. I know there's some still COVID cases out there, so don't get me wrong, it's still a serious issue. But mandates have really served their purpose, and it's time to move on and open things up again. We're just focusing on getting our country back on track. We put a lot of pressure on the government. I get a lot of questions about, what are you guys doing in Parliament? Every day we're working, I like to say 24/7 on getting these guys to make some good decisions. And in some cases, like we had this week, we had some private members' bills of ours pass. There's a lot of positive things going. It's difficult, though, to see the successes that we want to based on the Liberal and NDP agreement. They're acting as a majority government. It makes it very difficult for us to have some positive legislation.
Are you expecting, and I think I know the answer to this question, are you expecting the Liberals to start scaling back on some spending, perhaps to help battle inflation that's out of control here and really all over the place in the world?
Well, I serve on Fisheries and Oceans Committee, and as an example, we've seen in the last 6 years, we looked in the estimates, the budget alone has increased by 42.3%. And we're hearing all-time high in problems of the bureaucracy serving people that fish and people that are actually on the water. So here you have this bloated bureaucracy that's actually doing a worse job than it did before. We see a 4,000 person increase in the amount of bureaucrats, full-time equivalent bureaucrats in the system. We know that they have to reduce their spending because inflation is out of control. I don't know if these guys get that. I think and we've seen that the Liberal plan, what they do is they throw money at things. But it doesn't mean that there's successful outcomes outside of what's been spent. Hey, if we have to spend more money and get better outcomes, then maybe we should look at that. But when we hear, I can just tell you, my staff's in my office right now on hold with Passport Canada again. We do this every day for hours because the bureaucracy isn't working. And even though they've had massive increases in budgets and bonuses for executives and all the rest. So I am not confident that they're reducing their spending. I think Trudeau in the next 3 years will pull out the stops to have his agenda put forward, and we're going to do our best to stop his agenda or slow it down at the very least.
Yeah. Well, you brought up passports. I want to ask you about that. That's been a huge problem for people getting them timely. Have you seen any improvement on that yet?
No, it's gotten worse. It's just over the last probably 2 months, there was sort of a regular service that wasn't good, but it was coming in. And with everybody now able to travel, or most people able to travel, we're seeing this massive sort of application process, and it seems to have slowed it 10 times. And it's really, to me, unacceptable because we have staff that are in Ottawa that are supposed to be working on behalf of Canadians. And even during COVID, they were supposed to be working from home, but we wonder that if they were working from home, because we just haven't seen the results of that. But that's what we do every day, and we frankly do our best. We bring up issues in the House. I've had some personal examples that I've spoken about in the House and asked the minister about. But it's getting worse, frankly. So again, we're pushing that changes are being made. We just found out a couple of weeks ago that not all staff were even back working, and not all offices were even open again. And the question is, well, why aren't they? Canadians are back to work. They've been working, a lot of them, all the way through. Why are our offices that are supposed to be providing services to Canadians, why are they not open to serve them?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We've got about 2 minutes left, so we'll make these two quick if we can. I believe you're out. You've endorsed Pierre Poilievre to be the leader of the Conservative Party. Can you tell us quickly why you think he's the answer? Yeah,
he really is what we need in terms of leadership to get our country back on track. And his whole message is giving freedom back to Canadians. And he even has a private members bill to talk about lifting the federal mandates for employment and travel. I don't know, a lot of Canadians still know, we're still seeing Canada Postal workers getting fired because they're unvaxxed, and everybody else is back to normal. Why does Canada still have these draconian mandates for their federal employees? So it's all about freedom for Pierre, and I think he's the right guy. He's got very similar to Harper in a lot of ways fiscally. And he's got a very stiff backbone and ready to take on the other side and get things done. So, no, he's great. I think Canadians are seeing that. Our membership numbers just came in this week. They're massive. So I think if he becomes our leader, I think we're going to have a good ability to correct a lot of things in the country.
Yeah, and again, I mean, I think in general, tell me if this is unfair, he's a lot more right-wing than Aaron O'Toole was, who maybe was a little more red Tory. Do you think this helps get this party a win in the next election if you're appealing to a base that was probably already going to vote for you anyway? Yeah, I don't know if I'd say that. I'd say he's, Pierre, if you look at a lot of his social policy, he's very middle of the road. Fiscally, he's very conservative. I think you can compare him a lot to Stephen Harper. If you look at
kind of what they were about. They're very strong on the finance side of things and going after that. So I don't see him that way. I think we do have to have that a very strong message in the middle for that voter that might have voted Liberal last time. That well, why should we vote for you? That we should appeal to them. So I know that's what we're going to be going for. Is that definitely get our conservative voters to vote for us, but also we need another 5 to 10% of the other guys. So and that's what I would call the middle. That are just looking for solid fiscal management and asking for their freedoms again.
Okay. And finally, the Queen's Platinum Jubilee Medal. Of course, Queen Elizabeth II celebrating her 70th year on the throne. They're offering these Jubilee medals, which you have a nomination form available on your website. Tell us about it.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. So it's actually a medallion. It's not a medal with a ribbon. It's like a large coin. But when we found out the Prime Minister wasn't going to issue medals, it was a big thing in 2012 when we had the Queen's Jubilee Medal then. So we're having a process. You can nominate individuals and we're looking for that just unsung hero that might have, worked at the Salvation Army for 20 years and, we want those kind of people and we want their nominations. You can get a form off our website, bobzimmer.ca, or we have a householder that's coming out that has that application on there. We're doing 70 of them. They're numbered 1 to 70, and we're going to be presenting them this summer. So please get your nominations in as soon as you can.
All right, Bob. Well, thank you for making time for us.
Thanks,
I appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate the opportunity always.
Absolutely. That's Bob Zimmer, the MP for Prince George, Peace River, Northern Rockies, joining us on Moose Talk. Welcome back to the show. I'm dubcraig. Now to talk a bit about the impact Sue Popesku, I'm having trouble with that today, what impact she's had on the arts community and the community in whole, as she is about to receive the posthumously the Freedom of the City of Fort St. John at a Remembering Sue event tomorrow at the North Peace Cultural Center. To talk a bit about that, we're joined now by the Vice President of the Fort St. John Arts Council, Margaret May. Margaret, welcome back to Moose Talks.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for being here today. It seems weird to say, let's talk about Sue's impact on the community, because it's hard to believe anyone would not already know that.
Yeah, it is. She was certainly well known around the community, but I think it's still important that we acknowledge that. I mean, it was one of the sad things for many people, of course, during COVID, that we were unable to have memorials and celebrations of lives that we lost during that period of time. So I do think it's important to give her due and have that moment to actually sit down and remember all the things that she did for this community and meant for the community, and the energy that she poured into her efforts to make this community a better place. Yeah,
and in so many ways, I'm going to let you talk about the arts and the Arts Council part of it, but of course she's a founder of the Fort St. John Hospital Foundation. It's a major thing that she helped start. She helped get the North Peace Cultural Center kind of built and the funding for it, and just arts in general. She was always around Stage North. She was doing garage sales. Just in my brief time knowing her, she was always busy. She came here and would often talk about arts things going on. Can you measure her impact in the arts community? Would this community really exist without her?
It's hard to measure. I mean, I suppose we have to say that in some form it would, because there's lots of people out there that want arts and want to move it forward. And Sue herself would be the first to say that she didn't do all this alone. She worked with people, and even the building the cultural center, she was the big driving force behind it. And but she had people at her side working, and many of them have passed as well, like Tony Atkins and Heather Hannaford. But she was also, but she was a mentor. She was a mentor to so many of us, and encouraged, always encouraged. If you had an idea and you were doing the best you could, she would encourage and push forward. And she had just never stopped. I mean, she never gave up. She was a visionary. She always had ideas, and you never heard Sue going, "Wow, this would be great if somebody could do this." It was, "I have an idea, let's do it," and we'd go, "Okay, we'll do it." And so she sort of inspired other people to sort of follow along in her wake. And so there's a lot. I mean, I don't know if we'd have the cultural center or not. There was other people that were pushing for it too, but you know, with her energy and her, I mean, she had that, she was a great fundraiser too. I mean, she always said too, she said, if you got a good thing, if you got a good idea, the money's out there, you'll find it. There's a way to find it. And she always did. And of course it sort of came full circle in that she was a big driver behind getting the renovations done in the theater and getting the funding to put that in place, you know, more than 25 years after the cultural center opened. So I mean, the Arts Council, a lot of the inspiration she had, you know, propelled us forward. So, you know, she certainly had a big impact on the arts, and it's probably as vibrant as it is now. It has a lot to do with what she did.
What does it mean to you? You were mentored by her and a friend of hers, of course. And do you think, what does it mean to the larger kind of community, your arts community even, that Sue's set to posthumously receive the freedom of the city? Do you think that's her due? Do you think it's important that she gets recognized with this sort of honor that's really only bestowed very rarely on kind of the most highly respected and kind of honorable people in our community?
I absolutely think it's her due, and it's, you know, well deserved for the amount of effort and that she put into the community and what she did for the community. It's and she herself would say it's you know, it's this award's going to the whole arts community. I mean, because she was never about herself, which of course is one of the admirable things about Sue, is that she did it for the good of the community. She would see a need, and I talked to Sue a lot. We were on the arts post a lot together, and we'd chat, and of course I was picking her brain all the time trying to learn, and one time I asked her, I said, well, how do you keep going when things, you know, you have setbacks and disappointments, and you know, she said, well, you know, she thinks it's important, but she said, you know, I was always able to go home and look at myself in the mirror and know that all that effort she made wasn't for herself. It was for something that she felt was important and was good. It wasn't for self-aggrandizement. It wasn't to, you know, for profit on her part. It was, you know, so of all the people I've known, she was very selfless in the things that she did. And so, you know, for many reasons that, I mean, every time I walk at that cultural center, of course, I'm grateful for that alone, never mind all the other, you know, you coming from the Stage North side. I mean, she worked hard to see theater thrive in this community, and yeah, it's well deserved.
You know, it's been just about 2 years since her passing now, or it has been anyway. And of course, we still see her impact on everything. The community hub, even I remember when you came by and talked about that, she was kind of in on that kind of at the very beginning as well. What do you think Sue would think about the direction arts and culture is heading in Fort St. John? You know, kind of since she's passed. Do you think she'd be proud of what she's seen and sort of how others have picked up the mantle?
I hope so. And we've actually even said that in our group. So we, you know, something, if we've kind of achieved something, especially if it was something like the feasibility study for the Creative Hub, which was something that she dreamed of for a long time, or setting up, we were able to set up an endowment fund for the arts through the Arts Council, and that was a big dream she had for years to come. So we've even said it, well, I hope Sue would be happy with what we're doing. I mean, Sue always had lots to say about things that should be done too, and so I'm sure she would have lots of comments on where we should be going as well. But I hope that she would be happy, and I know she'd be happy in some respects that we're pushing forward with the Creative Hub, because pretty sure Sue started talking about the Creative Hub like the day after the doors opened to the cultural center. So so in that respect, I think she would be pleased. And of course, it's going to take many more than one person to replace Sue.
Absolutely.
And so we kind of feel like the mantle is kind of dropped on some of us to at least try and push forward and you know, even if we're individually a pale reflection of what she was able to do.
Wonderful. Well, Margaret, I really appreciate you coming by and chatting about this today. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you. And just so everybody knows, it starts at 3:30 tomorrow at the Cultural Center, and we'd really love to see the community out to kind of share our memories of our friend.
Absolutely. All right, that's Margaret May with the Fort St. John Arts Council. Again, remembering Sue tomorrow at 3:30, you said, right, at the North Peace Cultural Center. Stop on by.